What happens when the very people sworn to protect become our greatest threat? Tonight, we expose 16 chilling cases of officers who traded their badges for betrayal. From silent welfare checks gone deadly to cold-blooded ambushes in the dark, each story peels back a layer of hidden violence. Stay tuned as we uncover how power can corrupt and how justice ultimately prevails. Marcus Eberhart. On April 11, 2014, East Point, Georgia, Police Sergeants Marcus Eberhart and Howard Williams answered a domestic disturbance call, finding 24-year-old Gregory Towns panting on the lawn. Towns, overweight with underlying health issues, fled at their approach, but soon stopped, exhausted. Handcuffed and unarmed, he begged for mercy as Eberhart and Williams marched him toward their cruiser. When Towns stumbled, gasping for breath, the officers lashed out with their tasers, 14 times over a harrowing 30-minute stretch. Each shock drove more electricity into his frail body, leaving him pleading for air. Paramedics found him lifeless, an autopsy later revealing hypertensive cardiovascular disease compounded by repeated electrical jolts. His heart simply couldn't withstand the abuse. In December 2016, justice caught up with Eberhart. A jury convicted him of felony murder, aggravated assault, and violating his oath. Williams, who'd offered no resistance, was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter, reckless conduct, and an oath violation, receiving an 18-month sentence plus probation under first offender status. Eberhart's punishment was far sterner, life with the possibility of parole after 30 years. As of May 2025, he served 8 years and 4 months in a Georgia prison. Meanwhile, Towns's family secured a $1 million civil settlement, the maximum under East Point's policy. Their loss, and Eberhart's betrayal, echoes as a stark warning. Authority without accountability can turn protection into terror. Newman K Raja. In the early hours of October 18, 2015, housing inspector and church drummer Corey Jones called for a tow after his car stalled on a Florida highway. He remained on the phone, legally armed for protection, when Officer Newman K Raja, a 3-month veteran of the Palm Beach Gardens Police Department, pulled up in an unmarked van, concealed by plainclothes. Without announcing himself, Raja approached Jones's vehicle, ordered him to raise his hands, then fired 5 shots as Jones dropped his geology knife, leaving the gun unfired on the seat. Confusion erupted under the broken windshield. Was this a rescue or an ambush? An FBI-assisted investigation revealed Raja hadn't identified himself and ignored Jones's pleas. Forensic analysis confirmed Jones tried to flee, discarding his weapon before being shot from behind. Audio of Jones's tow truck call, released in January 2017, undercut Raja's claim that he dialed 911 first. Facing charges of culpable negligence manslaughter and attempted first-degree murder, Raja stood trial in March 2019. His self-defense plea faltered against eyewitness accounts and the tow truck audio. On March 7th, the jury found him guilty on both counts. On April 25th, Judge Joseph Marks sentenced him to 25 years, marking the first on-duty shooting conviction of a Florida officer in over 30 years. Now, at Wakulla Correctional Institution, Raja has served 6 years as of May 2025, with parole set for 2044. His case remains a painful reminder that a badge does not grant immunity, and silence in the face of evidence only deepens the tragedy. Deputy Andrew Buan. On June 10, 2022, 22-year-old Christian Glass found himself trapped after veering off a mountain road near Silver Plume, Colorado. Paranoid and frightened, he called 911, describing nightmares of skinwalkers and pleading to stay on the line. Deputies, including Andrew Buan, arrived under starlight, guns drawn, Glass's geology knife visible but motionless. For 70 tense minutes, officers coaxed him from the car. They shattered windows, deployed a taser, even climbed atop his hood with flashlights. Still, Christian prayed and blew kisses through the smashed windshield, convinced the vehicle was his only sanctuary. Finally, Buan opened fire, 5 rounds tearing through the glass and into Christian's body. Silence fell as the young man collapsed. Deputies called it a split-second decision. Family and witnesses called it a needless slaughter. Initially charged with second-degree murder, Buan's first trial in 2024 yielded only a misdemeanor reckless endangerment conviction after the jury deadlocked on greater charges. A 2025 retrial convicted him of criminally negligent homicide. In April 2024, after impact statements from a grieving family recounting Christian's final silent pleas, Buan received a 3-year term. Now, just 2 months into his sentence at a Colorado prison, Buan faces nearly 3 more years behind bars. Meanwhile, the Glass family secured a $19 million settlement, demanding reforms for police responses to mental health crises. Their loss reverberates. In the fog of crisis, compassion can cost a life when de-escalation fails. Aaron Dean. In the pre-dawn stillness of October 12, 2019, Fort Worth resident Atatiana Jefferson, 28, a Xavier University pre-med graduate, devoted daughter and beloved aunt, was enjoying a late-night video game session with her 8-year-old nephew Zion. Their front door stood ajar to clear smoke from burnt hamburgers when a concerned neighbor dialed the non-emergency police line. At 2:30 a.m., Officer Aaron Dean, a 34-year-old white male who'd joined the Fort Worth Police Department just 6 months prior, and his partner, Officer Carol D.H., arrived to conduct a welfare check. Without announcing themselves, they entered the backyard and peered through a window. In that split second, Dean perceived a threat. He shouted, "Show me your hands," and, without waiting for compliance, squeezed off a single shot. Inside, Atatiana, legally armed and believing an intruder lurked outside, retrieved her firearm and raised it toward the window. As Zion watched in horror, the bullet tore through the glass and struck her in the head. She collapsed, her life extinguished within moments. The body camera footage captured the rapid escalation, an agonizing sequence replayed across news outlets, igniting public outrage. 2 days later, Dean resigned before his impending arrest for murder. Released on a $200,000 bond, he awaited trial amid delays caused by COVID-19 shutdowns. When the case finally went before a jury in December 2022, prosecutors argued that Dean had acted recklessly, failing to identify himself, denying Jefferson any chance to comply, and misreading a home as a crime scene. The defense countered that Dean believed he faced an active burglar and acted in self-defense upon seeing a firearm. Key testimony came from young Zion, who bravely recounted how his aunt had calmly lifted her pistol from her purse to investigate an intruder. Officer H. confirmed they only saw Atatiana's silhouette before the fatal shot. Jefferson's sisters painted her as a compassionate community volunteer, a life of promise cruelly cut short in her own home. On December 20th, 2022, the jury convicted Dean of manslaughter, recognizing negligence without intent. His sentence, 11 years, 10 months, and 12 days, symbolically matched Zion's age and the tragedy's date. As of May 2025, Dean has served approximately 2 years and 4 months. With parole eligibility arriving in mid-2028, he will be about 41, haunted forever by a moment's decision that shattered a family and raised urgent questions about duty, identification, and the cost of split-second judgments. Roy Oliver. On April 29, 2017, 15-year-old Jordan Edwards attended a house party in Balch Springs, Texas. As the night wound down, a neighbor's 911 tip about underage drinking summoned officers Roy Oliver and Tyler Gross. The duo entered the home to locate the host, but instead heard what they believed were gunshots outside. Panic ensued, and partygoers fled. Jordan and his older brother rushed to their car to escape. His brother drove, while Jordan sat passenger side. Officer Gross approached the vehicle and smashed the passenger window, intending to halt their departure. At that moment, Oliver pulled up his patrol rifle and unleashed multiple rounds into the car, striking Jordan in the head. Medics rushed him to the hospital, but his wounds proved fatal. Initially, the Balch Springs Police Department defended the officers, claiming the vehicle had reversed aggressively toward them. Yet body camera footage told a different story. The car was driving away. Once footage surfaced, Oliver was placed on administrative leave, fired, and a warrant issued. He surrendered to authorities and posted $300,000 bail. Months later, the rare trial of a Texas officer for an on-duty shooting began in Dallas County. Character witnesses, Jordan's coach, teachers, and family, described him as a beacon of warmth and ambition, with the dreams far beyond his football jersey. Their testimonies underscored the magnitude of a life cut tragically short. On August 28, 2018, the jury found Roy Oliver guilty of murder, the first such conviction of a Dallas County officer in over 40 years. The following day, the judge sentenced him to 15 years behind bars, although prosecutors had sought a 60-year term. As of May 2025, Oliver has served approximately 6.5 years of his sentence at the James J. Byrd Unit in Huntsville, Texas. With the possibility of parole on the horizon, his case remains a stark reminder. The oath to protect must not become a license to kill, and accountability must follow even the most uniformed among us. Miles Bryant. On the evening of July 26, 2022, 16-year-old Susanna Morales texted her mother that she was walking home from a friend's house in Norcross. But Susanna never reached her front door. For 6 long months, her fate remained a haunting mystery. Missing person posters plastered on streetlights and shared across social media with dwindling hope. Then, deep in the woods near Duluth, 20 miles from where she vanished, off-roader Matthew Gilbert stumbled upon skeletal remains. No clothing, no personal items, just Susanna's bones, lying undisturbed in a hidden clearing. Dental records and DNA confirmed the worst. Susanna had been murdered the very night she disappeared. Investigators turned to 22-year-old Miles Bryant, a former Doralville police officer who lived near Susanna's route home. Evidence quickly mounted. Bryant's phone pinged near the crime scene, and his discarded mobile device held chilling web searches about decomposition timelines and dental identification. A firearm registered to Bryant was found at Susanna's body, and Bryant had bizarrely reported it stolen just days after she vanished. When arrested, Bryant showed no remorse as the victim's family delivered their impact statements through tears. His ex-girlfriend testified to his obsessive stalking, and a former cellmate revealed Bryant's arrogance, boasting that without blood or fluid, authorities couldn't pin the crime on him. Yet the jury saw through every lie. Convicted of malice murder, felony murder, kidnapping, and filing a false report, Bryant faced life without parole, plus an extra year for falsifying police documents. As the judge pronounced sentence, the courtroom held its breath. Here was a man entrusted to protect, now condemned to spend the rest of his life behind bars. As of May 2025, Bryant has served 10 months at the Georgia Diagnostic and Classification State Prison in Jackson, Georgia. Each day a stark reminder that trust, once shattered, can never be fully restored. Kenneth Blue. On August 30th, 2011, 32-year-old Jennifer Webb was discovered hanging from her car's roof rack in Buena Vista Township, Michigan. An apparent suicide staged with chilling precision. But forensic pathologists saw through the ruse. Manual strangulation, not asphyxiation, caused Jennifer's death. All evidence pointed to one man, 37-year-old Kenneth T. Blue, a former Buena Vista Township police officer and the father of Jennifer's unborn child. He had everything to lose: a stable home, a marriage he'd shattered by impregnating Jennifer. Fearing scandal, he chose deception over responsibility. DNA and fingerprints linked Blue to the scene, while his own erratic behavior during the investigation deepened suspicions. He claimed ignorance, but the court heard how he'd meticulously twisted the scene to look like suicide, scrubbing blood from surfaces and cutting Jennifer's body down to mask the truth. In November 2012, the jury delivered a damning verdict. Blue was guilty of first-degree premeditated murder, assault with intent to cause a miscarriage, and 2 counts of felony firearm possession. During sentencing, Jennifer's mother's voice trembled as she accused Blue of destroying every life that trusted him, his betrayal echoing long after the courtroom emptied. Blue drew life without parole for murder, 65 to 100 years for the assault on his pregnant victim, and 2 years for each firearm count, all to run concurrently. As of May 2025, Kenneth Blue has served approximately 12 years at Alger Correctional Facility in Munising, Michigan. Each day a testament to a life undone by betrayal, and a stark warning that some secrets demand the ultimate price. Henry Solless. On March 13, 2015, 23-year-old truck driver Salome Rodriguez Jr. found himself in a tense confrontation with off-duty LAPD probationary officer Henry Solless outside a Pomona bar. What began as a heated argument escalated when Rodriguez fled on foot, and Solless, rather than de-escalate, gave chase. In a matter of seconds, Solless drew his service weapon and fired multiple rounds into the back of Rodriguez's torso, leaving the young man dead on the pavement. Rather than remain to face the consequences, Solless vanished. With his father's help, he slipped across the U.S.-Mexico border, captured on CCTV walking hand-in-hand with his parent in Ciudad Juarez. As the FBI placed him on its most wanted list, Solless was fired from the LAPD, his badge stripped away as the search intensified. 2 months later, in May 2015, authorities apprehended him in a relative's home. Extradited back to California, Solless insisted he'd acted in self-defense, painting Rodriguez as the aggressor. His attorneys praised his prior service while impassioned impact statements from Rodriguez's family laid bare the brutal truth. A son's life was cut short, leaving a father pleading for the mercy his own son denied Salome. In a Pomona courtroom, prosecutors dismantled every claim of justification, showing surveillance and ballistic evidence that made Solless's story ring hollow. When the jury returned its verdict, they found him guilty of second-degree murder, a conviction that many in the victim's family felt was too lenient, though they took solace in seeing him held to account. On sentencing, Solless drew 40 to life, while his father, Victor, received probation for aiding an escape. As of May 2025, Henry Solless has served 9 years in a California state prison, 9 years to reflect on a split-second choice that turned a routine night into a senseless tragedy. Michael Nye. In November 2019, former Manford Police Department officer Michael Nye and Police Chief Lucky Miller traveled to Pensacola Beach for a law enforcement conference. Sharing a Hilton hotel room, they seemed like colleagues winding down after a day's work, until chaos erupted late at night. Guests reported shouting, then silence. A maintenance worker found Ney atop Miller, glass shattered, blood pooling beneath the fallen chief. Deputies arrived to pull Nye off Miller's motionless body. Miller exhibited a swollen eye and no pulse. Nah was conscious but injured, treated at Sacred Heart Hospital for a broken nose and lip sustained during the arrest. Autopsy reports confirmed Miller died from blunt force head trauma and asphyxiation. At least one blow, pathologists noted, delivered impact comparable to a high-speed car crash. Throughout Ney's March 2021 trial in Escambia County, the defense clung to intoxication. He claimed drunken disorientation caused him to inadvertently pin Miller, unable to extricate himself until it was too late. Ney refused to take the stand, leaving jurors to weigh his version against medical findings and witness testimony. When the jury reached its verdict, they found Nye guilty of second-degree murder. On April 29, 2021, he was sentenced to life in prison, credit for the 536 days he'd already spent behind bars. The community reeled. 2 respected officers, 1 life snuffed out by inexplicable violence. Now, as of May 2025, Ney has served 5 years and 5 months of his sentence. Behind prison walls, he must grapple with a truth more chilling than any patrol call: that a split-second choice, born of anger or intoxication, can forever shatter lives and betray the very oath he once took. David Carrick. For nearly 2 decades, Metropolitan Police Officer David Carrick wielded his badge not as a shield, but as a weapon. Beginning in 2003, he lured women through dating apps, presenting himself as the quintessential gentleman in uniform, only to trap them in his Hertfordshire home and unleash unspeakable horrors. Between 2003 and 2020, Carrick committed at least 85 serious sexual offenses against multiple women, including 48 direct assaults. His tactics were chilling: false imprisonment in cupboards, whipped flesh, and even the threat of a firearm pressed against a terrified victim's head. Despite 9 separate complaints filed between 2000 and 2022, the Metropolitan Police repeatedly failed to investigate, allowing Carrick's predatory behavior to escalate unchecked. A 2016 review mishandled a harrowing complaint, effectively giving him a free pass to continue. Yet behind the scenes, victims lived in terror, stripped of their freedom, their voices silenced by the man sworn to protect them. In 2021, one brave woman shattered the silence. Her allegations prompted a full-scale investigation that uncovered the breadth of Carrick's crimes. 12 women found the courage to testify, each revealing a piece of the brutal mosaic he had constructed. In February 2023, Carrick entered guilty pleas on 49 charges spanning the 12 victims. The courtroom fell into a stunned hush as the prosecutor detailed calculated manipulations. Carrick's control over what his victims wore, ate, and even with whom they spoke. The judge spared no mercy. Carrick received 36 consecutive life sentences, with a minimum 30-year tariff before any parole consideration, an effectively whole life term. As he stood unflinching, lacking even a shred of remorse, the judge condemned his actions as a profound betrayal of public trust. As of May 2025, Carrick has served approximately 2 years of his sentence in a UK high-security prison. He will not be eligible for release until at least 2053, at which point he will be 76. His case forever stands as a grim reminder. Unchecked authority can mask the darkest of crimes. Nicholas Tartaglione. In the pre-dawn hours of April 11, 2016, former Briarcliff Manor officer Nicholas Tartaglione orchestrated a massacre fueled by greed and cold vengeance. Bodybuilder turned steroid trafficker, He believed Martin Luna had stolen $250,000 intended for a drugs purchase. To reclaim his money, Tartaglione lured Luna and 3 companions, nephews Miguel Luna and Urbano Santiago, and friend Hector Gutierrez, to the Liquid Lounge Bar in Chester, a meet he'd rigged. As soon as they arrived, the gathering turned premeditated nightmare. Luna was dragged to Tartaglione's Otisville rental property, beaten for over an hour, then executed with a zip tie. The other 3 watched in terror before each was shot once in the back of the head. Their bodies were hastily buried in a shallow grave, hidden until December 2016, when the FBI's Hudson Valley Safe Streets Task Force discovered the mass burial site. Tartaglione's arrest followed swiftly. He pleaded innocence, claiming he was merely a businessman running an animal rescue. His alibi crumbled as evidence mounted. Forensic traces in the grave, witness testimony, and the damning cooperation of accomplice Joseph Biggs, who ultimately took the stand and received a 16-year sentence for his role. In April 2023, a jury found Tartaglione guilty of 4 counts of murder, kidnapping resulting in death, kidnapping conspiracy, and narcotics conspiracy. His trial revived headlines when it emerged he had briefly shared a cell block with Jeffrey Epstein in 2019. Though not at Epstein's death, he remained a key witness in related inquiries. By June 2024, the judge sentenced him to 4 consecutive life terms without parole, ensuring he would never again walk free. As of May 2025, Tartaglione has served 10 months in federal custody. His fall from lawman to mass murderer stands as a stark testament. Corruption can run deeper than the line of duty, and vengeance can wear a badge. Matthew Kenny. On May 19, 2019, former Oxford, Mississippi officer Matthew Kenny slipped behind the wheel of his marked patrol car, not on duty, but on a chilling mission. He drove to the home of 32-year-old Dominique Clayton, his secret lover, and quietly entered through an unlocked door. Finding her asleep, Kenny retreated to his vehicle, retrieved his department-issued Glock, and returned to finish what he'd come to do. 1 shot to the back of Dominique's head. The next morning, her 8-year-old son Blake discovered her body. Investigators zeroed in on Kenny immediately. His fingerprints on the weapon, his cell tower pings near the house, and surveillance footage placing his cruiser at the scene. Yet, even as the net closed, Kenny tried to cover his tracks. He texted Dominique's phone to suggest she was alive and stashed his own phone at the Oxford Police Department's horse barn to forge an alibi. Confronted with mounting evidence, Kenny broke. He admitted their year-long affair, confessed he'd feared Dominique would expose him, and revealed he'd panicked when she threatened to tell his wife. In August 2019, a grand jury indicted him for capital murder. To avoid a possible death sentence, he pleaded guilty and was handed life without parole. A federal court later awarded Dominique's 4 children $2.2 million. Punitive proof that justice can outlast even the most calculated betrayal. As of May 2025, Kenny has served nearly 6 years in a Mississippi state prison, leaving one haunting question. When the badge means everything, whom can you really trust? Wayne Cosens. On March 3, 2021, 33-year-old Sarah Eberhart said goodnight to friends in Clapham, South London, and began the final walk of her life. CCTV captured her strolling along Pointers Road, phone pressed to her ear, unaware that former Metropolitan Police officer Wayne Cosens had spotted her. He pulled over in a rented car, flashed his warrant card, and handcuffed Sarah under the pretense of a COVID-19 breach. Instead of driving her to the station, Cosens veered down dark country lanes to Kent. There, in a secluded spot, he strangled Sarah with his police belt, doused her body in petrol, and set it ablaze on his private land. He swapped vehicles, dumped her phone and belongings, then returned to duty, claiming, without shame, stress-induced unfitness to carry a firearm. Days of frantic searching ended when remains were found near Ashford. Cosens' alibi crumbled under phone records and witness accounts. During interrogation, he spun wild tales of gangs and bribes, each more implausible than the last. An inquiry later exposed that prior indecent exposure complaints against him had been ignored. A fatal oversight that let him prowl free. On September 30th, 2021, jurors rejected every excuse. Cosens was sentenced to a whole life term, never to breathe fresh air outside prison walls, and an additional 19 months for earlier indecent exposures to run concurrently. As of May 2025, he served 3.5 years at HMP Frankland. Sarah's story reminds us that evil can wear a badge, and that vigilance and accountability remain our greatest defenses. Bobby Cutts, Jr. On June 14, 2007, 26-year-old Jessie Marie Davis vanished without a trace from her Lake Township, Ohio home. 9 months pregnant and last seen stocking up at a local grocery store, she left behind only her 2-year-old son, Blake. When Jessie's mother returned the next day, she found the house in disarray, overturned furniture, bleach-stained floors, and Blake alone, clutching a comforter. Through tearful sobs, he whispered, "Mommy broke the table. Mommy under the rug." Panic swept the community. Neighbors, volunteers from Texas EquiSearch, even random passers-by scoured fields and woods. Yet every lead circled back to one unlikely suspect: Jessie's boyfriend, Officer Bobby Lee Cutts, Jr., Blake's own father, and the man who should have protected them. At first, Cutts denied any knowledge of Jessie's fate, but 9 days after her disappearance, on June 23rd, he drove investigators to Hampton Hills Metro Park and calmly pointed out a comforter-wrapped bundle among the trees. Inside lay Jessie and her unborn daughter, Chloe, both lifeless. Under the weight of her blood-soaked blanket, authorities saw not an accident, but a meticulously hidden crime. Cutts maintained that an argument had spiraled out of control. He claimed to have accidentally elbowed Jessie in the throat during a struggle, panicked when she collapsed, and enlisted his friend Meisha Farrell to help conceal the body. But forensic evidence told another story. Bleach-scrubbed floors, the remote dumping site, and the cold precision of the cover-up betrayed premeditation. When the trial began on February 4, 2008, the courtroom hushed at each chilling detail. Prosecutors laid out a damning narrative of betrayal, a sworn protector turned predator, discarding the lives he vowed to cherish. Witnesses described Blake's tiny fingers clutching a bloody comforter. Detectives recounted Cutts's calm demeanor as he guided them to the gravesite. Cutts's own tearful testimony, admitting panic and remorse, did little to sway jurors. By February 15th, the verdict was clear. Guilty on charges of aggravated murder of his unborn child, murder of his girlfriend, aggravated burglary, gross abuse of a corpse, and child endangerment. 12 days later, the judge sentenced him to life without parole, ensuring he would never again harm another soul. Meisha Farrell, the accomplice who helped dispose of the bodies, pleaded guilty to obstruction and gross abuse of a corpse. She received 2 years. Now, as of May 2025, Bobby Cutts, Jr. has spent approximately 17 years behind bars at Ohio's Marion Correctional Institution. Each day echoes with the memory of 2 lives gone too soon, Jessie and baby Chloe, and the haunting question: how could someone sworn to serve and protect unleash such cruelty? Daniel Holtzclaw. Just after midnight on June 18, 2014, 57-year-old Janie Ligens finished her shift in northeast Oklahoma and headed home. Moments later, Patrol Officer Daniel Holtzclaw flipped on his lights and pulled her over, something he would later claim was a routine traffic stop. But when Holtzclaw logged off his cruiser's computer and ignored dispatch protocols, the veneer of legitimacy slipped away. Behind the tinted windows of his patrol vehicle, Holtzclaw revealed his sinister plan. He demanded Janie lower her underwear, then forced her into a sexual act, threatening to arrest, or worse, if she resisted. Terrified, she stared at his badge, praying he wouldn't show her his name and seal her fate. When it was over, Janie rebuilt her courage, walked into the local police station and filed a report that would crack open a hidden legacy of abuse. Detectives Kim Davis and Rocky Gregory quickly moved in. They stripped Holtzclaw of his badge and uniform, collected DNA swabs, and placed him on paid leave. At first, he walked free until investigators unearthed a haunting truth. At least 16 women had previously reported assaulting encounters under suspicious circumstances. One victim described a stop just like Janie's, in which he'd driven her to a remote spot and forced himself upon her. Empowered by Janie's bravery, more survivors came forward. Over 13 women in all, ages 17 to 57, many from marginalized communities who felt powerless to speak. They shared eerily similar stories. Holtzclaw would run background checks on vulnerable women, those with criminal records or battling addiction, knowing they might stay silent. Then he'd pull them over, brandish his authority, and coerce them into degrading acts. By August 21, 2014, Holtzclaw was under arrest, charged with multiple counts of assault. The ensuing trial in December 2015 exposed a systematic pattern of abuse. A victim who'd been handcuffed in a hospital bed tearfully recounted how he threatened her with her past and forced her into oral sodomy. The jury, shaken by the scope of the betrayal, convicted him on 18 of 36 counts. First-degree assault, battery, and forcible oral sodomy among them. When the judge pronounced a sentence of 263 years, effectively a life sentence, gasps echoed through the courtroom. He used his badge as a weapon, the presiding judge declared. Every appeal Holtzclaw filed was denied, and in 2019 the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals reaffirmed the verdict, dismissing claims of misconduct and lack of evidence. Now, as of May 2025, Officer Daniel Holtzclaw has served 9 years of his term at the Lexington Assessment and Reception Center. His family vows to pursue further appeals, but justice, slow as it can be, has already spoken loudly. No one, not even those sworn to protect, is above accountability. Michael Valva. In the pre-dawn stillness of January 17, 2020, former NYPD officer Michael Valva dialed 911 from his family home in Center Mauritius, Long Island. His frantic voice claimed that his 8-year-old son, Thomas, had slipped on the driveway, banged his head, and lapsed into unconsciousness. Valva insisted he was performing CPR. But when paramedics arrived, they found something far more chilling. Thomas was unresponsive. His body temperature a lethal 76.1 degrees Fahrenheit, classic hypothermia. Despite every effort, Thomas was pronounced dead at the hospital. At first glance, this tragedy looked like an accident. But investigators soon discovered a darker truth hidden behind Valva's badge. Surveillance footage revealed that Thomas and his younger brother Anthony, both on the autism spectrum, had spent the night in the family's unheated garage. No mattress, no blankets, no bathroom access. On that freezing night, the boys huddled on bare cement as the mercury plunged below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. At dawn, Thomas soiled himself in desperation. When Valva finally opened the garage door, the video shows him berating the shivering child before blasting him with a high-pressure hose. Thomas collapsed seconds later. Yet his father waited more than an hour before calling for help. School staff later painted an equally grim portrait. The boys routinely arrived hungry, in soiled clothes, and shivering with cold. Signs of abuse hidden in plain sight. Fellow parents whispered about their constant scavenging for food. How could Valva, a decorated officer, allow his own sons to suffer this way? In March 2020, Michael Valva and his fiancée, Angela Pina, were arrested. Valva faced second-degree murder and multiple child endangerment charges. Pina faced identical counts. During the tense trial, the defense portrayed him as a dedicated lawman pushed beyond his limits. The prosecution countered with heart-wrenching evidence, home videos, school reports, and chilling testimony of two little boys forced to endure cruelty behind a locked garage door. In December 2022, the jury delivered its verdict, guilty on all counts. Valva and Pina each received 25 years to life. This was not a momentary failure, declared the Suffolk County District Attorney. It was sustained, unforgivable cruelty. Today, in May 2025, Valva has served just over 2 years of his sentence in a New York State correctional facility. If he ever earns a parole hearing, it won't come until 2047, when he'll be 68 years old. But for the memory of Thomas and Anthony, freedom is a distant hope. These 16 stories remind us that power without accountability can become lethal. If you found this investigation eye-opening, hit like, share to spread awareness, and subscribe for more true crime exposés. Stay vigilant, demand transparency, and join us next time as we relentlessly shine light on dark truths.